What's up, guys? It's your boy James, aka 68J with Crypto4Life, the greatest way to start your day. I'm super excited as I have a phenomenal panel of individuals that I'm really excited to have on the show. We're going to start with my little brother, Edo Farina. Edo, how are you?
Doing great. How are you doing, James? Everything is good?
Yes, sir. I am fantastic. And next, I have Chris and his wife, Maya, with Fruition Productions. Super excited to have you guys back on the show as well.
Thanks
how
for
are you
having
guys?
We're doing well.
Awesome. And the star of the show here, guys, I have to bring this guy in and give him his credit. This guy is absolutely phenomenal. He's pioneering, what's going on right now in the push towards exposing ETHGate. A lot of times, when you think of people and their selflessness, I love his story. I watched the video with XRP Bags. I watched several videos with him talking about, not accepting money, doing this just for the right reasons. He's extremely amazing in what he does. When I think of people like Gandhi talking about freedom, right? Or Martin Luther King talking about equality. When I think of Stephen Nerayoff, I think about exposing the truth. And I think that's something that everyone in the crypto space will remember this guy for years to come. Stephen, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well, and that was very kind of you. Thank you for that introduction.
You're very welcome. It's an honor to have you on. I'm super excited. So how's everything going? I know you got a lot of stuff going on. Let's just start with how are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's coming at me from all directions, but
I bet.
I've been doing that for years now, so I'm kind of used to it.
Well, for those, I know you're very well known in the space, but for those who might not know who you are, let's just start with that. Before we get into crypto, who is Stephen Nerayoff, and what was your background prior to even having anything to do with crypto?
So, I was trained as a lawyer originally, but I've been in tech since the 90s when I was running internet companies in Silicon Valley. I'm really a technology guy, and it's a combination of the two that kind of got me involved in the two spaces that I'm involved in now, which is mostly artificial intelligence and blockchain.
Nice. We just got XRP Bags, my brother, here in Las Vegas. I was with him last year at the Moon Party. Extraordinary talent, man. One of the greatest guys in the crypto space for sure. Bags, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good. Appreciate you having me on. What's up, everybody?
Hello.
Wow.
So guys, I sent you guys all a list of the questions. Edo, if you'd like to go to the next question, and I'm just going to have everyone just kind of ask questions so they can all be involved in this interview with Stephen. Go ahead, Edo.
Yeah. So first and foremost, also welcome XRP Bags. We just got on the streaming right now. So my question, Stephen, I think it's very interesting to understand how did you actually get involved in crypto and why? What was the big reason that get you attracted to crypto in general?
Right.
So, when I was in college, I started reading Ayn Rand and even Alan Greenspan's old stuff, and a lot of the Creature from Jekyll Island, and I got really intense involved in all of that and interested in that. And like a lot of people, I thought there was going to be hyperinflation and everything. Fast forward into like 2010, and I was literally sitting at my desk, and some guy drops the Bitcoin Satoshi's white paper and says, "You got to check this thing out." And I read it, and I still remember this. Like I had these two eureka moments. It was that one, and then with the Ethereum white paper, and I said, "Whoa, is this thing a monetary system?" And it kind of blew me away because I did not, even though I'm in tech, the last thing I was expecting was a technology solution for the issues with our monetary system. And I think it is, if Bitcoin isn't, it's certainly a model for what our monetary system should be. So that's how I got involved. And I have some tweets up at 30 or 32 cents, something like that. I was tweeting the network statistics in 2010. That's how I first got in. Then Ethereum came a few years later.
Nice. Next question for Chris and Maya.
Yes.
Yeah, so I guess if we're asking kind of what your track record with crypto is, how long you've been in it, what were some of the things, maybe you should talk about the thing you invented.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting what happens when you're really just not trying to invent something and you're trying to solve a problem, before I go into like the background stuff, I'm just talking about something more recent. When I issued, for those that haven't seen it, I issued a 3-hour conversation with the talk with Vitalik in 2015 when he asked me to restructure the foundation. That was based on like a 3-month, like McKinsey type review of every aspect of the organization. And I said, how do I release this where it just, nobody can mess with it, nobody can change it, and everybody can own it? And I said, well, why don't I just drop it into an NFT and then let people, just have their own NFT? And I did that, and now it's become a code, a name, an INFT, information NFT. And it's like a new use case for the NFT. But again, I wasn't trying to invent something. I was just trying to solve a problem. Back in 2014, early 2014, the Vitalik and them contacted me, and then they said, we want to sell, this thing called Ether. And, I say this thing called Ether because it was like, we didn't understand what these, like how to think about these things that we're referring to as tokens or coins back then. And they were told by the SEC and, like a dozen white shoe law firms that it would be an unregistered sale of securities, under the U.S. securities laws. And they asked me, can you figure out a way for it not to be? And, the gist of it was I had to figure out how to think about this thing, the token, and that's what came up with the product narrative, that it was like fuel or like a stamp that you put. And the reason is because it had what I was calling functionality. And that became the genesis and invention of the utility token, as we know it today. Then the second thing I needed to do was figure out how do I sell this to the public without turning it back into a security. And and so you're kind of thinking in a vacuum because you're thinking, what are all the possible ways that something could go wrong? Like potentially a whale buying a large amount, more than they could use. That wouldn't make sense for a product. If you're buying, like 1 million barrels of gasoline, unless you're like American Airlines, it probably is not a product for you, right? But for American Airlines, it is. But if you're a whale, it's probably not. And so I had to think of all of those. And so all those steps that I put into place, that turned into what is now known as the ICO. And evolved it into the IDO and IEO. So those were the two that I did at Ethereum, and there's been a bunch of other stuff that I've done over the years in crypto, that I put out there. And while I'm doing that, I just have I've also like a bunch of stuff that I've done in artificial intelligence.
Wow. Head of the game. I love it. XRP Bags. Next question, number 4, brother.
Yeah, Stephen. So when did you realize that something was off, and why did you want to speak out?
Okay, that's good questions. So while the crowd sale was going on, actually I was in the same office with it was an office I rented for Ethereum in New York.
Okay.
And Joe and I and a couple other people were in that room watching it, kind of the crowd stuff for the 42 days. At the same time, we had started this company that we originally called Nuco, then we renamed it Consensus.
Okay.
And so Joe and I were running this company called Consensus. And I would say somewhere around like after the crowd sale, there was something that made me uncomfortable with Joe. I've been very open about it.
Right.
I just came to him one day and I just said, it was unclear how much I owned. We were going back between 25 and 50. I said, well, you should be 50. He said, no, I should be 75. And I was like, well, you actually don't know what the hell you're doing. Why are you 75? But, like that as a I just said to him one day, it's like, I was very uncomfortable with this guy. There were certain things that he did to other people that I saw that I was like, that's just like not like human. Like that's not normal. That's pretty like devious. And so I felt uncomfortable. So I just told him, I said, no harm. Like here, you can take, take back whatever. I don't have any claim on anything.
Wow.
A couple years ago, he asked me I had all the domain names, consensus.com, and everything. I gave them all to him. I wasn't aware of anything during the crowd sale. That's the interesting part, because I set up the whole structure, but I wasn't on the back end. So like Joe and Vitalik, as far as I understand, had access to the Bitcoin address. And we talk about that actually in the recording, where they said, because Joe hadn't hedged the position, which was a problem because Bitcoin fell.
Right.
So but when I did my review, that was more towards the end of the year in 2014 into 2015, then I started seeing a lot of things that were making me very uncomfortable, and I've it's in the recording. Right. I said to Vitalik flat out, I said, I didn't know of anything specific at the time, but I said, based on what I've looked at, I can't imagine security laws have not been tripped. Because it didn't. What it appeared like was the steps that I put in for the ICO didn't appear that they were respected. I didn't have anything hard but I was getting half answers or evasive answers, or people didn't know. One of them is specifically the size. Were people limited in the size and how much they were buying?
Right.
And so that was the second one. Now, your other question in terms of I guess the next time, when did I decide to speak out? I made the decision I was going to speak out while I was getting falsely prosecuted. When I was in kind of the depths of that, when every attorney told me you've got no shot, you're not getting out, and I said to them, this is getting dropped. I don't care if it's unprecedented, it's getting dropped. But I made a commitment to myself. I said, when I get out of here, I said, I'm going to tell the world the truth, regardless of what it costs me, regardless of the danger to me. I made a promise to myself that everybody needs to know what's happening.
Right. Well, let me ask you this, Stephen, with the fifth question here. What do you feel? What was the reason? Was it because you were asking questions? Was it because you were questioning everything? What was the reason that they came after you? I mean, that's the part that I just don't understand.
Oh, there's two questions. There's one, why didn't, they actually, to their credit, they never tried to buy me out, but pay me off or anything like that. The kind of money that they were stealing, whatever, and that was, I think, as a result of the fact that I refused my ether, I gave back, my, whatever I had in consensus, it was I basically gave up about 1 million ETH, and they saw that I didn't really care.
Wow.
So they made the right choice, I guess, for them, because if they had come to me, I would have immediately gone to the authorities. So, what was the best of the question was?
Was it because you were trying to ask questions? What? Yeah. Why did they go after you?
So that bugged me for a while when a dozen FBI agents bust into your house like you're Pablo Escobar, and I have no idea why. But what dawned on me when I started, researching to defend myself, I had probably more documents about Ethereum than anybody else. I restructured and structured every single department. And so everybody was sending me stuff. I was getting on the Slack boards and all of that. And then what I started realizing is I had documentation that actually, in particular, as we're talking about with the ETHGate and the Hinman speech, there's other stuff too, but the Hinman speech, I have documentation proving that, for example, Joe and Vitalik, who spoke to the SEC before that speech, knew that internally Ethereum didn't believe it was decentralized. And yet they went on, let him make the speech, and they went on publicly and said it was. Nobody else had that information but me.
Wow. And I'm going to have Edo ask the next question. Before I do, I'm going to kind of go off the side here. It sounds, right now, especially in the movie industry, it doesn't seem like the industry is where it used to be at. And this sounds like probably the greatest movie that just hasn't been told yet. No pun intended, Fruition Productions. So I'm really excited about this story, man. I mean, it's unbelievable in so many different facets, but yet believable because you understand who we're dealing with. Edo, if you can ask the next question, my friend.
Well, first, that's all. I think we all respect you for taking the risks to come out and talking the truth, actually.
Yeah.
So I would like to ask, did they really throw you inside a van?
Yeah, it's interesting that, we put that in our public filing. My attorney signed that,
Wow.
he swore to it. And so it was kind of shocking, but yeah, so the answer is absolutely, they absolutely did. What they did was they took me. I had some surgery like 2 days earlier, and so they handcuffed me like this. Somebody actually asked me a really good question. They said, "How could you read anything if you were handcuffed?" Because they handcuffed me like this, and they took me in, and just two of the agents put me in a van. One of these agents, I had been teaching about crypto because and how to do catch fraud in crypto. So it was like real shocking that he was the main guy. And they put me on the floor. It was a metal van. And he basically said to me, you're not going to see your children grow up. You're going to spend decades in prison. I still had no idea what the hell was going on or what they were charging me. They hadn't told me. And then he handed me this list on a clipboard with, I don't know how many pages it was. And I looked down at this list, and it was just all the OGs in the space. There were other people on there too, but it was like one after the other after the other. It was basically everybody that I could think of in the space. And I started flipping through it. I was like, what is this? And so that's true. And then, what they asked me was, and this went on for like over a year because they were asking my attorneys for this. So it wasn't just in the van they were asking. My attorneys said to the prosecutors, look, he doesn't have any information on criminal activity. So he's got nothing to give you. And they said, well, that's fine. Tell us, and literally, I remember these. They said, tell us where they go on vacation. Tell us who their boyfriends or girlfriends are.
That's crazy.
Tell us where they trade their crypto. And when my attorneys told me this, I said, this is a goddamn witch hunt. This is not actual investigative. They're just, it was like Stalin's chief of police. Show me the man. I'll show you the crime. That's what it seemed to clearly be.
Wow.
That being said, it was clear to me that I was the main target, and they figured, well, they've got me. Let's see what else they can get out of me.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, you hear about all these conspiracies and things like that. I think you might be the first person I've ever heard of that's actually lived that scenario. You see these things in movies, you always hear about these things, but I don't think I've ever met anyone who's actually been treated that way. As far as being thrown in the van, that's amazing.
And importantly, this is every criminal defense attorney I've spoken to has never heard the fact that I was not given my arrest report.
Wow.
And to this day, they refuse to give me my arrest report. But clearly, it probably has this in there, and they don't want this to be shown. But I'm going to fight and get it.
Wow, that's incredible. Chris and Maya, if you don't mind picking a question to ask, that'd be great.
Oh, free choice. Oh,
free choice. I thought number 9 would be great.
I don't know about that one.
Okay. Yeah, no worries.
No, I think it'd be interesting to hear from him about, Stephen, about your thoughts around the regulatory environment and with, John Deaton running against Elizabeth Warren in Massachusetts. Like, what do you see that race? What do you think that signifies? And also, what do you think is sort of like the steps that need to be taken, regardless of the outcome of that race? Sorry, I'm going slightly off topic, but I'm staying on the script. I think it'd be interesting, Stephen, to hear kind of what your thoughts are, like where we're going in the regulatory environment with that John Deaton race against Elizabeth Warren. Like, what could that mean? Because already you're kind of seeing Elizabeth Warren sort of shifting all of a sudden her positions on crypto. She was a very staunch anti-crypto person for quite a while.
And as he asked that question, did you guys see the video where she came out promoting like she wants weed to be legal worldwide? I mean, it's just the stuff that they're trying to do right now to get votes is just ridiculous. But great question. Go ahead. Great question. Wow.
I think Elizabeth Warren made a very huge tactical error when she went after crypto, and I don't think she realized that what large percentage of the population and the electorate at this point has touched crypto in one way or another, and
Right.
and in some form or another, like understand that kind of crypto is like, you know, a way to equalize the system for the guy, you know, the little guy, right? And so
That's exactly
if
right.
anybody's going against crypto, it's like, why are you going against crypto? Like, why are you trying to take what you want? You know, the advantages that the banks and everybody have. You want to, like, we got this one thing, and you want to take this from me, and like that's kind of what goes on in people's minds, right? Because they have it in their wallet, and like they get that there's something. You know, you can go deeper into this, but like everybody kind of gets that crypto is like the great equalizer for the average person.
That's right.
She made a tactical error by targeting crypto directly. She
Yeah.
had been targeting it indirectly through the SEC and through Gensler. And like, you know, I don't know if they're the same person because I don't see them in the same room at the same time usually, but like they seem to be going across the same lines.
Right.
You know, and I talked about it. She's been behind, you know, some agency creations, you know, like at the Federal Reserve level that are super draconian, and so she's been backing the establishment, the banks, the Federal Reserve, and like so crypto was really a threat to her constituents. Now, why is this like? There's the Massachusetts voters, right? In my opinion, she's a horrible senator for Massachusetts. I don't even think she knows like anything about Massachusetts, nor does she care. She's
Right.
just all about national issues and like dealing with national issues, right? So, but whatever. That, you know, Massachusetts voters should wake up and realize that John Deaton, crypto aside, he is like on every single issue. And John, you know, is representing me in a case. So I've spoken in detail. Like, look, the guy is just like super sharp and understands people. Now,
Absolutely.
on the crypto side, from the regulatory standpoint, we're in a very dangerous place right now, like super dangerous. You know, they've tried enforcement by, you know, taking people to court. You know, Ripple fought them. You know, other people have fought them. Library lost. You know, so some people have lost, some people have won. Coinbase is up next. You know, and let's see what, you know, what's going to happen with them. But it's clear that they're looking to basically eliminate crypto as we know it to be a decentralized, non-regulated asset. And when you regulate it, you know, the way they want you to regulate it, it loses, you know, its ethos. It kind of loses its you can't, you know, it just can't just go where it wants to go.
Right.
You know, it's different than a security, right? And it's meant to be different than security. And I'm partly to blame for that, and by coming up with the product narrative of the utility token, that you know, a lot of people have said to me that kind of like when it was embryonic protected it. They weren't able to like attack it from that angle. I think Deaton is one guy that has an understanding of like how he doesn't think that, you know, crypto should be the wild west.
Right.
I actually don't either. I'll put it this way: crypto needs regulation.
Absolutely.
No, that's not the issue. It's not regulation or no regulation, right? The question is appropriate regulation. Right? Warren Davidson put the Token Taxonomy Act in 2019, which created a safe harbor. And this is like, it made total sense. You do this, you do this, you do this, and you're a utility token, you're not a security, you're safe, right? And
Absolutely.
if you go to like places like Dubai, you know, and you want a license for an exchange, they give you a form, and they say you got to do this, this, and this, and then you can have your exchange, right? So it's pretty clear. What's clear here is that I think they have pushed not to have regulation,
right?
And in the absence of that, they could attack anybody they want. What I think Deaton is so powerful in is that he has an understanding of regulation, has understanding of legislatures, and he's a force of nature to begin with.
Right. That's right.
That he could be the one that could get a coalition, especially if they have a majority in both houses and in the White House, and actually get appropriate legislation. And the appropriate legislation, I would just say this, is that would really, like, you know, stop people from being afraid to enter into the space. More capital would come into the space. It would legitimize the space. And if you go around, and I've been to the other countries that have done this, you see it flourishes, and everybody's kind of like doing well.
Right,
and
right.
Would enter the space.
Yeah, no, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think you hit the nail on the head. It's not about the SEC, Elizabeth Warren. Nothing they're doing is about regulatory clarity or trying to give that. When you think about, Brad Garlinghouse and Ripple trying to go in and sit down with them without any legal representation, just to be open and open up the books and say, hey, what do we need to do? When you think about Coinbase attempting 30 times, I believe Brian Armstrong said, and then finally having to file a lawsuit just to get some type of clarity. I think this is all about control, Stephen. I think this is about enslaving. I think they like that. And I'm not talking about a race. I'm talking about all people. I think it's about keeping people in the matrix. I think it's about, because what does crypto represent? Crypto represent, like you said, for the little people, it represents the opportunity for the little guy to dream again. It's the fairest form of capitalism that's out there right now, right? It's not about how tall you are. If you can, you could dunk a basketball like LeBron, if you can throw a pass like Joe Montana, if you can sing like Prince or something like that. It's all about just, being at the right place at the right time, doing some research, and you're able to put yourself and your family in a position that changes everything. No, they want to keep people in the box. They want to keep people enslaved. And I think that's what it's all about. It really sums up a narrative of control. And I think that's the problem that they have, or that's the problem that I see, is not really loving the people as they should. So with that being said, crypto XRP bags, you don't mind taking question number 9, my friend?
Yeah, and also a quick note on that, regulations, BTC came out 2019, XRP 2012. Here we are 15 years later and still nothing, no regulations. So
absolutely. Yep.
Stephen, we got Fruition Productions here. How big do you think and how important do you think this documentary coming out from Fruition Productions?
Oh, I think it's like, it's huge, right?
Yeah.
It's like, so there's two things to it, right? It's the fact that like these two people, Chris and Maya, and Chris's, and the team that they had, and they really have a very, very, very professional. This is like going to be an amazing production. Like people have high expectations.
Right.
But you have two people that are like super intimately familiar with and have lived this entire story as XRP holders, as part of the XRP army. They watched it, like they lived it, right? And then they actually have the professional skill set to create the actual full production.
Right.
And there's another narrative. There's another important thing here. Is like these two are like also unusual. Like not everyone in crypto like understands like the bigger picture and how this kind of slices out, and how to be able to present, things that a narrative that you may not catch, right? And where not to distract people, and like, really where to, So I think the Ripple litigation in and of itself is a story that needs to be captured,
right?
Because from a historical perspective, like even if you look back to right before they filed it, Joe Grunfest, the former chairman of the SEC that I worked with on a daily basis, when we were working at Ethereum, he sent a letter and said, do not file this. Like this would be an unprecedented, both in scope, enforcement action, and you have no reason. There's no substance to. You have no definition of why Ether, for example. He says Ether and XRP. There's no differentiation. You're not putting anything forward.
Right.
And there's no need to rush and file this. And yet they did that. So when you've got a former chairman of the SEC who's got insane credibility, and he's sending that letter to a current chairman of the SEC, that's like unprecedented in and of itself.
Absolutely.
And yet they go on their very last day and file it, right? It's a tale of how our democracy and our institutions could get co-opted and can go rogue, and not on an individual. What's scary about this one is like it wasn't an individual, one rogue individual, and it wasn't some people that were there and I think like they gave them a bribe. These were multiple agencies. Like the SEC was the one that was actually prosecuted behind my prosecution. They're not allowed to be behind a criminal prosecution. Same people involved. And that's what you're talking about now is now widespread corruption throughout agencies, like the entire agency is acting in a corrupt manner. Like that's actually, all due respect to everybody on crypto and CoinMarketCap, this is a bigger story than crypto. This is about our democracy.
Right. Well, I want to add into XRP Back's question before I ask my next question, and that is just the love and admiration I have for Chris and Maya, and just with the interview. I do a lot of interviews, but you can just tell these guys are all heart. Their story is incredible. I hope. And I'll be honored if they allow me. I know after we got done, they actually messaged me and said, hey, we want to come back and possibly tell our story. Their story is just so profound. Now, I come from a very humbling background. I like John Deaton, welfare, the hard knocks and all that good stuff. But when you meet people that are that authentic, it resonates on how this documentary is going to be. And I don't think, I made a comment with Lewis Jackson earlier this morning. I don't think we could have two greater people telling this story. And so I'm just really, really excited about them and about this documentary. You guys are welcome.
100% I agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So
appreciate all the kind words.
Thank you.
no, you're welcome, brother. I definitely. And so the next question I would ask, because you talked about Ripple, what was the question here? Would you agree that Ripple's a solid company, and if so, why?
Yes, and I said that there are videos on my YouTube channel, Steve Nerayoff, that where I'm talking publicly about Ripple. Right. In the conversation with Vitalik, you actually hear me say, I'm explaining it. I knew Chris back in 2014, 2013.
Oh wow.
I know Jed, Chris, Brad, all of them. I knew them from back then. Ripple, actually, XRP follows me on X for the last 10, 11 years.
Wow, that's awesome.
And I was telling Vitalik, look, when they asked a question about XRP, I said it was, I don't remember if it was Chris or Brad who was, one of them said, oh, I don't answer questions about the token, only he does. And I said, that's like really important, because the issue we were having at Ethereum is like, there's like all these co-founders and like everybody, and everybody's going around talking about it. I'm like, and when I said, don't talk about it, it's an investment. One of the guys the next day goes on a podcast and said, this could be the greatest investment in history. I'm like, well,
wow. Yeah.
Basically my point was I was holding them up as the gold standard in crypto.
Wow,
and
nice.
I think that still stands today. They're still the gold standard in terms of having a corporate environment, behind it while still allowing it to be decentralized.
Right. Right. No, I agree wholeheartedly. And what a great answer to that question. Edo, if you don't mind taking number 11, my friend.
So from all these players out there, why do you believe they came after specifically Ripple? That seems to be the one that is a legit business out there.
Why did they target Ripple in particular?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look.
Yes. For which reason Ripple?
Yeah. I mean, look. It depends. Kind of like if you look at it from a broader perspective, what were they trying to do with Ethereum, right? And so if you've got J.P. Morgan's got this quorum, which they transfer to consensus and then and put on an Ethereum, right, and which can do cross-border payments. And cross-border payments, could lead to the reserve currency of the world, right? It's not that much of a leap to get there, right? If you have to go through this thing to go from one currency to another, this thing may become the reserve currency, right? But check the cross-border payments. So, I've heard people like I know Charles, said, they're not even a smart contracts platform. And I said, well, maybe smart contracts was not what they were targeting, and because
right.
I'm not targeting Cardano, but I'm Charles is a friend, so I'm not but I get that that's like you're in the knee jerk reaction, but what's the ultimate thing? And I think the issue was really, if I had to say it, Ripple goes back to your question before. Ripple was too good to catch, even if you had the full strength of the federal government, unless you changed the rules, illegally blocked and tackled and did all kinds of stuff in order to slow them down,
right?
And so you could catch them, and you weren't going to catch them. They just had too much of a lead. There's a point where just even the government is not going to be able to catch a company, and it didn't work. I'm sure they thought it would work, but at the same time, they would have accomplished the second task, because if they got Ripple and said Ripple is, a security, and there's no reason that all the smart contract tokens would have also been classified, and you could have really see a world. And this is where it's scary. You could see a world where we would just have two tokens that are not securities, and Ethereum and Bitcoin. And that was the end of it.
No, that makes sense. It's funny because I always refer to the Ripple, Ethereum, and SEC like the 1980s when they had the Olympic Games. I believe the star skater, her name was Nancy Kerrigan, and the lady that hired the thug was Tanya Harding. And the whole premise was to hit Nancy Kerrigan in the ankle so that she could take her place. And I believe that that's really a great analogy when you're thinking about what happened with Ripple, Ethereum, and the SEC. So XRP Bag, if you don't mind taking the next, I'm sorry, Chris and Maya, if you don't mind taking the next question.
Oh, sure. What number are we on here?
I think we're on 13. It's more of a comment, but I think it still comes across, and that just kind of, in my opinion, lets you know who Steven is. Go ahead.
This said, I love how you always say it's not about hurting Ethereum, it's just about getting the truth out there. So I guess, how do you feel about that statement from your point of view?
Yeah, I think a lot of people misunderstand. I'm not attacking Ethereum.
Right.
With all due respect to the human calculator, Vitalik, and the non-human Joe, I think it's fair to say I'm probably more responsible for, the explosion of Ethereum and its ecosystem by creating the utility token and the ICO that funded the whole thing, and allowed for it to, blow up. It pains me to have to be. I'm going after bad actors that but the concept behind Ethereum. I put my heart and soul into that, right? So it's not like I want to see anything negative. People are like, oh, well, you're not doing, apparently you didn't do a good enough job. Ethereum hit a new high. I'm like, good. I'm not after the code, right? Ethereum is, the smart contracts, which, it really kind of actually came out of Ripple. That's a game changer, right? And so that should go out, so my getting the truth out is getting the truth out about the people that were originally behind Ethereum, and it's not just Joe and Vitalik. There's a lot more. There's and then there's the Hinmans of the world, and so getting the truth out about all these people, and it's unfortunately sometimes you've got something very valuable and legitimate run by very illegitimate people that are doing things illegally.
Right.
And so it's kind of hard for people to see the difference between the two. I think there's going to be an issue, that here's where, there's going to be a come to Jesus moment is once they realize that how concentrated it is in the hands of a few people, then what happens?
Right.
And I think the market is probably going to tell a lot of that, deal with that, because if you're building on something and that two people own 80, two groups own 80% of that, right? Do you really want to be putting your entire project on that chain? I don't think so.
Yeah. Right? That makes a lot of sense. XRP Bags, if you don't mind going back to number 12, my friend.
Yes, Steven, where do you see crypto, blockchain, distributed ledger technologies in the next 5 years?
So that's a really good question. I think I live the internet, boom, in Silicon Valley, right? And it feels like, it's not the same, but, it rhymes, right? History rhymes, right? And so in 2000, there was the big internet crash, right? And that was and if you look at it, even from a stock standpoint, it's just a little bump, right? But back then it was like, this crater, right? But what you saw was, they were judged. There was nothing really productive being created, right? It was more like financial engineering, and counting eyeballs and stuff, right? But the real stuff started being created after, even like Google, right? I think crypto is going to have that moment where the market's going to say, okay, and here I'm talking about like dApps, right? Crypto is not a casino, right? Like this, that was supposed to be a secondary thing. The main point was supposed to have decentralized applications, and those decentralized applications was really what's going to free us. It's not just owning the tokens themselves.
Right.
Having a bank that there is no middleman bank in there, right? But you have all the services of a bank, and it's decentralized and it's fair. That's what crypto is about. And
Absolutely.
so I think what in your question is there's at some point there needs to be that shift, right? And it either is going to come where the market just says, it's not accepting this until there's like real substance of products and decentralized, marketplaces and things that are being created for people that actually people can use. I said this before, but I said it's like, electricity and crypto are very similar, right? They power things, and those things improve our life, right?
Right.
It's not the crypto itself, right?
Right. Absolutely.
What crypto can allow, removing the middleman, not having to trust, right? And the decentralization. And it's kind of like somebody discovered electricity, and instead of powering, let's say, the Industrial Revolution, we just trade electricity all day long and say forget about all that other stuff and creating a better society. And crypto has the potential to do that. And I think the final point of the question is one killer dApp is going to come out. And what you see, if you look back in technology history, right, like there was a computer and everybody's looking at this and they go, oh, wow, this is like awesome. What do we do with it? Right? Like they really had no idea what to do with it. Right? And somebody came out with this thing called VisiCalc, which is a spreadsheet. And like that was the game changer. And all of a sudden they realized what we could do with a computer. 10 years ago, they said apps weren't going to work. Number one paid app was Fishkoi, the screensaver, right? Like Steve Jobs didn't think it was going to work. Right. Now it's like, trillions and trillions of dollars in apps because we had a killer app or two.
Right.
Crypto needs is that one killer app to show people, whoa, this does really change my life. Not just financially, but like in every other way. And so that's the moment I think. And I think that moment's going to come within the next 5 years.
Awesome. One of the things I wanted to ask is, I know that you've got, we talked a little bit about, before the show, you've got some game-changing opportunity or project that you're working on, I believe, with Chris and those guys. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what that consists of?
Well, yeah, I mean, like, I hate people who complain about stuff and don't have a solution, right?
Right.
Like, it's so I talked about the state of crypto today. It's horrible shape, and I talk about crypto 2.0, the reboot, right? And like, how do we get there? And so my contribution to that is, it's a project that I've been working on actually since 2010. I have a bunch of inventions that I did in artificial intelligence, like when you see those boxes, like when the police body cams are on your phone, like tracking people. Well, I invented that like in 2012, right?
Wow.
So we have a company that has a lot of that stuff, and then we were creating a smart city application to automate city, things within a municipality. What we realized was we actually have the technology, the know-how to create what we're calling a digital twin of the entire planet. So people call it the metaverses, right? I don't really like that term. So it's more of like an immersive environment of a digital twin of the planet where you can still be you. So you're not like a cartoon in a spaceship, but you actually look like you, and it'll be a new economy, and so if you go into a store, the store actually looks like the store you go into,
Okay.
And instead of buying your avatar an NFT, you're going to be buying yourself a suit. You probably buy a digital version of it because you want to look good and you look like yourself.
Right.
You-
Right.
People to, and then you may buy a physical one to send home, right? So and there's another aspect of this that's really critical. I think this is the structure, right, for a new world that kind of looks like our world.
Right.
But you can do things better, faster, cheaper. You get to teleport. I could go to the Japanese gardens in real time and see what it's like right now.
That's awesome. Wow.
Yeah.
It gives a chance of the world to have kind of like a do-over, and we
Right.
can also decide on like what we want.
Well, I love it. I love it. Now, because when I talked to your team, they wanted to make sure that I kept this within a certain amount of time, so I wanted to respect that. So I wanted to have these structured questions for that reason. We're still got about 15 minutes before we come up on the hour, so I like to take this time, if you don't mind, and I would ask everyone as you do so within the premise of the questions, and make sure that that's something that Stephen is not going to put him in a precarious position. But I want to start with Edo. I will go Chris in the XRP bag. Any freelance question that you want to ask Stephen, this is your time. Let's go ahead and do that. A question that you can think of off top, maybe something you want to ask him. Go ahead, Edo.
If you could go back on time, would you change anything about your job in Ethereum, the things that you have done for the foundation?
Great question. Wow, great question.
Yeah, I would. So like one thing I would change is I would insist that there's a third party auditing what's actually happening on the back end, right? Like what's coming through. I also would have enhanced the verification. We know it's AML KYC, but more than an email address would have actually had, to show you're a person, because that would have avoided the disguised whale issue. And so, like, those are two very key things that I would have put in place to make sure. But frankly, I wasn't really thinking that there was going to be some illegal activity on the inside, right? We were more concerned about people from the outside, and getting attacked and things like that. So those are two major things I would do. One other thing I would add is, and I know it was proposed, is I would have put in place a transparency program where everything that happened, is actually transparently put out. But they chose not. They voted against that. That's like kind of telling.
Yeah.
That was in 2015.
Maya and Chris, or individually or together, doesn't matter. A question or a comment that you want to ask or present to Steve, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'll ask a question. Just, I guess, give me your sense of like a utopian future, and where can we as a human race not repeat the same mistakes, right?
I'm sorry, last part?
Oh, just where can we as a human race not repeat the same mistakes? And just like what your ideal is of a utopian society, and how can we, what would get us there, or what would be challenging and what would destroy us? How do we not repeat the same?
Yeah, it's a great question. So like going back to the project that we're creating, the digital twin, and it's called Clone, KLONE. One of the premises behind it is it gives society a chance to do a do-over, right? It gives us a chance, like for people who've been to Burning Man, right? Like you understand, after being there for a couple of days, you're like, there's something different. Like they've created this, basically utopian society that you can go for like 5 days and like, and hopefully soak that in, right? So that here's a chance where we get to re-question our values, right? And like and do it in a way that's probably safe. But like, is it okay to kill a virtual person? Like, is that okay or not? Like,
Right.
There's millennials where we've decided where we just go to war. Like, could we in this new society say war is not allowed? Like, is that we get to re-question and crypto, blockchain, immersive experiences. This gives us the opportunity, and I would just finish with this one thing, is that beyond the tech and everything, and I've spoken about this for years, governance, which is really what we're talking about, governance and values of a society is actually going to be the hardest part to solve in crypto, and blockchain, right? And that's we're in the kindergarten in terms of that stuff, and so when you're talking about an immersive experience and that governance, like that's really, really complicated. And it's probably going to take us a generation or two to figure it out. But I think having the virtual world opportunity to figure it out, people will say, maybe we should, like, they don't even realize that just because we've been doing it for so long, it's wrong, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's a great question, great answer. XRP bags.
Yeah, so speaking on like ETHGate and everything going on over there, do you think that we get some type of resolution, and are people going to be held accountable? And can this kind of be like the catalyst that drives us into like some type of utility era, or where coins with use cases actually come to the forefront?
Well, let me first of all be clear about what legal action I'm taking and I'm allowed to take.
Okay.
And I'm doing everything that I can. But they make it almost impossible to sue the federal government. For what's called malicious prosecution. But I read that needle and I satisfied the requirements. So I will be filing a lawsuit against the federal government for actual losses that I sustained as a result of their prosecution. That is like the what of what happened to me, right? So, Joe and Vitalik and Hinman aren't specifically in that. The second part of that, right, is why. Why did this happen to me, right?
Right.
And so I can sue for the what, and to the extent I can pull those other people in, they may have immunity, right? But that doesn't mean but they also may have committed some criminal actions also. And so during the discovery of this, we'll figure out how many people and why this happened to me were involved in executing this against me. And I think you'll find an insane parallel between what was happening, both time and people, against Ripple, and what was happening against me. The timelines match up like incredibly, going back to 2017.
Oh wow!
When it both started. Now, in terms of will people be held accountable? It's interesting because people are saying, well, it's a government agency; they're not going to hold themselves accountable. There's something different and this is where blockchain comes in, and it's a double-edged sword for those guys, right? And I'm going to shout out to Boring Sleuth from Truth Labs, because I got really fortunate. I have all the evidence about what happened, both wrong against me and against Ripple, but he's got the on-chain data to actually prove out, and you can't argue against that, right? So that gets public, right? There have been instances where, large amounts of government employees were held accountable. I can't remember the name of the one where they offered bribes to all these congressmen.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and senators, and a few didn't take it, but a bunch that did take it, and they all got prosecuted. Right? And people didn't think that anything would come of that, right? But no, they actually did get prosecuted. So I think it's going to be. I don't know how they can avoid it. Plus, most of those people will already be out of office. So why would the new people coming? That's one of the problems. As time has gone on for them, and especially if it's an administration shift, right? They don't have loyalty to those guys.
Right. Well, final thought, Stephen, for you. Before I wrap it up, I want to just open up for anything that you want to comment on, anything that you want to say, your final thoughts.
Yeah, so I'm just one guy, right? Hopefully I've contributed to this space, and whatever I did, I did it out of, wanting really a better society. I didn't take any money or anything for it. But this, having people like Chris and Maya come in, you guys having this podcast, right? If I'm an ignition, or a spark, then great. then let me be used in such a way, right? But the real only way this is going to actually happen is if enough people get together and we're unified and we're not just concerned about the price today, which, by the way, if this all gets fixed and we did what we were supposed to do, the prices would be orders of magnitude higher than they actually are. That's what people don't even realize. They're like, you're trying to knock down the price. It's like, you think Ether at 4,000? Imagine if Ether had dApps on it, it would be at like 400,000.
Wow.
Right? It would be the most valuable asset on the planet. That's what they don't even understand, right? So like it's not even helping you financially to go along with this, but at a certain point, you also have to talk about our way of life, right? And so, I think the biggest take home is we need more people involved. That's why John Deaton getting in Senate and making this an issue, right? Like when we see this, these committees, and they're like, we're going to subpoena you, but they don't ever do anything. Right. So we need accountability, and that means enough people. And here's the point: the fact that Elizabeth Warren is clearly running scared, right? She understands the power. She's telling us right now that all of us that are in crypto have a lot of power. She's not a person that gets scared easily, right? And it's just we're not used to using it, right? And so there's a project that we're working on to try to actually help facilitate this. But the key, I think, is going to be using our numbers, and they cannot beat our numbers, right? At the end of the day, it's a republic for the people, by the people, right? It's our republic. It's they are supposed to serve us, and this is a time where we have to demand it, because if we allow this to happen, then I think we're really close to a slippery slope. And I don't want to go down like conspiracy theories, but I'm like, it's just kind of very clear. If this goes unanswered, then what else can not be? What else can they not be held accountable? Pretty much anything.
Absolutely. Now, I do know that, if I'm not mistaken, as we wrap this up here, now one question I have before I actually make this comment: are you coming to Las Vegas by any chance?
When is it? Yeah.
It's May 3rd and 4th. I believe Deaton's going to be here. I believe, Garland House and Joe Katz, all those guys are going to be out here. So, yeah, it's going to be great.
I hadn't decided on that, but I hadn't thought about it. But I think I'd like to be there.
That'd be amazing. I think everyone would love it. It'd be an honor to meet you and get to know you even more in person. So with that being said, now, XRP Bags, I know not this Sunday, but next Sunday, I want to make sure that we promote that. We're scheduled to come on your show, myself, Stephen, Fruition Productions, and some others. Can you tell us a little bit about that and the time on that, please?
Yes, that's going to be next Sunday, 10 a.m. PST. I believe. What day is that?
Sunday?
17th, maybe?
17th? Let's see. It's let me verify that real quick. That would be on Sunday the 17th. Yes, sir.
Yep, Sunday the 17th. We're going to have Stephen back on with Fruition Productions, and we're going to keep the ball rolling and get this truth out and then just keep it going.
Let's go.
I love it. Yeah. So with that being said, guys, I appreciate you guys. I want to also give some shouts out to some people that's been super inspirational here in the last, I would say, week. Shouts out to Digital Asset Investor, DAI. Shouts out to Lewis Jackson. Shouts out to Digital's Perspective. Shouts out to Zach Rector. Shouts out to Echo. Shouts out to all those who have been a part of Fruition. John Deaton, a special shout out to Stephen Nerayoff and Chris and Meyer for all you guys are doing. I think it's going to change everything. It's the thing that's given a lot of people hope when it seems like at times there's not hope. And for what you guys are doing along with Stephen, I think it's just a game changer. So thank you guys all for being on the show. We appreciate you guys. We love you guys. And we'll see you guys 2 Sundays from now.
Also,
Thank you so much.
real quick shout out to
And guys,
6A for
remember,
having the panel
individually,
together.
we are small drops. Together, we are the ocean. So I want to thank Stephen for the inspiration, and shout outs also to Digital Assets Investor. Thank you.
XRP Bags?
Yep, it's a ripple effect. I just want to say shout out to 6A for having the panel together. Appreciate you. Make sure to hit the like button and to subscribe, and make sure to share this so someone else can see it that needs to see it. Appreciate you guys.
Appreciate you guys. Until next time, you guys take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, guys, the stream.